Hi guys, it's me, ChazzaHD, and welcome to the weekend preview for the 2023 United States Grand Prix. Hope you guys are well. I just need to get into, though, one thing before we get into anything else in this stream. Because I need to let you guys know that I am very nervous coming into this stream. And you may be thinking, why? It's just a weekend preview stream. You've done this a million times before. That is true. But this is my first stream with my new PC. So, and I haven't had a new PC in 4 years. So, I'm not quite sure in this stream how things are going to go and whether there'll be fuck ups or whatever. So, please bear with me during tonight's stream. But also, if there is any issues in tonight's stream, such as the mic being too loud, too quiet, or whatever, or the stream is lagging, or not good enough quality, or, if there is an issue with the stream, then please let me know, because if there is, then I have, of course, time before we get into the proper meat of the race weekend to get that fixed and get properly going for the rest of the weekend. So, yeah, if there is an issue with the stream, then please let me know, whether it's in the comments section, the live chat. Again, please let me know. And one thing I would like to know, because this is the thing I'm most nervous about, is if you could, in the live chat for everybody watching already, please let me know how my microphone sounds. Does it sound any different in a bad way compared to the last stream I did a couple weeks ago? Please let me know, because that is the thing I'm most nervous about, because I had to get the settings right for the new PC and make sure I remembered them from the last PC and all of that. So yeah, if there is any issues with the mic, let me know. But if it's good, if the mic sounds absolutely fine and good, then please say that in the chat that it sounds good, because again, that would definitely make for an easier stream for myself. But I hope you guys are doing well. And yeah, Aline and Mickey saying you sound good. Thank you for that, because that's the thing I'm most nervous about. Because when I was testing it a couple days ago, I was blowing the speakers out because I think forgot to turn the volume down on the on my microphone settings. But it should be my microphone settings on OBS. It should be the same as it was on my other PC. But yeah, hope you guys are well. Of course, it's been a couple of weeks since the last Grand Prix, and we are now at the beginning of a triple header. This weekend is the US Grand Prix at the Circuit of Americas. Next weekend, we are in Mexico City, and the weekend after that, the first weekend in November, we're in Sao Paulo for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix in Brazil. So, even though there's only 5 races to go, we are in for hopefully a very exciting next couple weeks with 3 race weekends. Unfortunately, a couple of them are sprint race weekends, but given the tracks we've got in this triple header, I don't think that's going to harm our entertainment too much this weekend. But as well, another thing I wanted to say with my PC is hopefully the quality of the stream in terms of the frames per second, hopefully that is better as well, because on my old PC, I was only able to stream in 20 frames per second because the old PC would start to lag and there'd be some issues with that. There'd be issues with that on the old PC, and that's why I only streamed in 20 frames per second, so I could make sure that I could actually stream. But I am streaming tonight in 60 frames per second. First time I've ever done that, so hopefully there's no issues with lagging or anything like that, and hopefully everything visually looks clear. But yeah, hope you guys are all doing well, no matter what time zone you're in, what part of the world you're from. Hopefully you're all safe and sound, and you will be joining me in hopefully enjoying another entertaining race weekend at the Circuit of Americas. This Grand Prix does tend to be consistently one of the best Grand Prix weekends of the year. I can't remember really the last weekend we had here that was boring. I mean, you could argue there's never been a boring US Grand Prix. We've had so many classic moments here. The first ever race here in 2012, we had a great battle between Hamilton and Vettel for the win. We had a couple races where Hamilton and Rosberg fought very hard for the race win. Of course, that famous 2015 race where secured his third Drivers' Championship. Some great races here between Ferrari and Mercedes in the 2010s as well. And of course, last year and in 2021, a classic battle between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton for the race win. So if it does follow the trend of what we've seen ever since we came to this track 11 years ago, then it should be a good race weekend at Qatar. But yeah, let's get into this stream and get into, firstly, the championship standings going into this event. Actually, before I do, just wanted to say there is a poll running in the live chat, and I've asked you guys who is most likely to challenge Red Bull at this weekend's 2023 United States Grand Prix, and your options are Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, and Aston Martin. Let me know who you think out of those four is most likely going to put up a fight against Red Bull. But let me now get into those championship standings. And on the driver's side, Max Verstappen is just over 200 points clear. He's 209 points clear of Sergio Perez. Of course, Verstappen officially won the third driver's title 2 weeks ago in Qatar. We knew he was going to win the championship, really, since, June? Something like that. It's been inevitable from Verstappen. And then you have Perez in second, only 30 points clear of Lewis Hamilton. And Perez really has to secure second in the championship because, by the looks of it, given the rumours we've heard in the last few days, his Red Bull career, and possibly his F1 career, does rely on whether he can finish in second or not. And they got, Hamilton third. Of course, he didn't even finish the last race because of that accident with George Russell. Fernando Alonso is in fourth with Sainz fifth, Leclerc sixth, Norris in seventh, Russell eighth, Piastri in ninth, and Lance Stroll still just about in the top 10. And then on the constructors' side, Red Bull, of course, are champions, and they are 331 points clear of Mercedes. Not comfortable at the minute for Mercedes in their effort to try and finish second in the championship, but they did outscore Ferrari just about in Qatar, and then Ferrari are 28 points behind, I think. So that fight still rages on, but you'd imagine that Mercedes are going to still secure second. And then you've got Aston Martin fourth, with McLaren only 11 points behind in fifth. Surely McLaren are going to get ahead of Aston Martin by the end of this race weekend. Of course, it being a sprint weekend as well, even more points on offer. So yeah, I think McLaren definitely will end the US Grand Prix weekend in fourth place. And given how Ferrari are 80 points about ahead of them, third place is even possible, especially if Ferrari have a couple more poor race weekends like they had in Qatar compared to McLaren. So McLaren, don't underestimate them. They are very strong right now, and their pace was very, very strong a couple weeks ago. And they got Alpine in sixth, Williams in seventh, Alfa Romeo up to eighth. Of course, they finished eighth and ninth in Qatar, 6 vital points for them. And then Haas in ninth, who have brought their massive upgrade, and they'll be hoping that pushes them back into eighth and maybe into seventh by the end of the season. And then AlphaTauri, of course, are last, and of course have Daniel Ricciardo back at the team and back in the car. And thankfully, he's all healed up and ready to go. But let's just get into the circuit. Of course, you guys know the circuit well. Circuit of Americas. It is a very challenging racetrack, not just for the cars, but especially the drivers. And this track does really show the best drivers from the, the good from the best, if that makes any sense. It separates who is the absolute best on the grid. The first sector, very similar to the Maggots and Beckett section at Silverstone, or the S's in Suzuka. It's a brilliant part of the track, the first sector. And the first sector is from what? The start-finish line, as you can see with the arrow on the bottom, all the way until about turn 7. And yeah, all about high-speed corner performance through there. Then a few more high-speed corners going down into the hairpin of turn 11. Then a very long back straight, which is the main area, of course, to watch out for when it comes to overtaking. And then you have some very slow corners after that of turn 12, 13, turn 15 as well. And then you have a quite a quick end to the lap through the what will be in qualifying flat out turn 16, 17, 18. A quick turn 19 and a medium speed final corner of turn 20, and that is the lap around the Circuit of Americas. Now, given the first sector and the final sector is really about high-speed corner performance, the sector I've decided to look at in this preview to get an idea as to who should be quick here is the final sector from Qatar, because the final sector in Qatar, very similar to the first sector here at Qatar, where obviously it's dominated by high-speed corners. Red Bull and Aston Martin looked very quick through them. McLaren as well were very, very quick in the high-speed corners. And we have seen, especially since that new upgrade came mid-season, that McLaren in the high-speed corners are incredibly quick. That's why they were so strong at Silverstone, for example, because that track, of course, is full of those types of corners. Alpine was surprisingly good. I don't think they'll be too bad, Alpine, this weekend. And then you've got Ferrari, Mercedes, who were lacking in that final sector. And then AlphaTauri, who were okay, with Haas, Alfa Romeo, and Williams rounding out the rest of the field. But of course, in the middle sector, I would say the middle sector, which is from turn 7 all the way until turn 13, basically, I'd say that's mostly about straight line speed, because you have a flat out section from the exit of turn 9 down to turn 11, and then you flat out along this very long back straight all the way to turn 12. So you're going to need a bit of a good top speed this weekend, but fundamentally you need a car good in those high speed corners. And Red Bull, McLaren, from what we saw in Qatar, Alpine, and even Aston Martin to a degree, looked good through there. And I'm expecting, definitely outside of Red Bull and McLaren, who I think will comfortably be the two best teams this weekend, outside of them, it's going to be a very close fight through the rest of the field, I think. And it should be a very competitive weekend, again, from, say, the third best team, whoever that is, all the way down through the field. But the pecking order I have gone for this weekend is Red Bull to be quickest. This pecking order, by the way, is based on qualifying, how I think the pecking order will be in qualifying. So Red Bull, I think, will be quickest. McLaren second. Ferrari third. Mercedes fourth. Aston Martin fifth. Actually, not Mercedes fourth. Aston Martin fourth, and then Mercedes fifth. I have a good feeling about Aston Martin this weekend. Mercedes fifth, and then Alpine in sixth, with AlphaTauri very close to them in seventh. I wouldn't be surprised if those two teams are on the same pace this weekend. And then Haas 8th, Williams 9th, and Alfa Romeo 10th. That pecking order I've done is not taking into account the upgrades that are coming to this weekend. There is some very important ones going on to the cars this weekend, which I'll get onto later in this stream. But let me just get into my initial predictions for the weekend. So here are my predictions for qualifying. Max Verstappen, I think, will be on pole by just under half a second, from Lando Norris in second, Perez third, Piastri in fourth, and then I've gone Sainz in fifth. Of course, remember, Sainz took pole position here last year, didn't get a chance to defend that pole position, unfortunately. Charles Leclerc, I think, will qualify sixth, with Alonso seventh, Russell eighth, Hamilton ninth, and Esteban Ocon, I think, will round out the top 10. And then, in the race, I think Max Verstappen will comfortably win yet again, with Norris in second, Perez not too far behind in third, Piastri in fourth, Alonso 5th, Hamilton 6th, Sainz 7th, Russell 8th, just behind in 8th, Leclerc 9th, and Esteban Ocon in 10th. And I think the main exciting fight this weekend is going to be Ferrari, Aston Martin, and Mercedes. That is the part of the field to look out for because, again, Red Bull and McLaren should be comfortably the two best teams here. I don't think anyone really has any doubt about that. I've seen other journalists share their thoughts coming into the weekend, basically confirming the same thing, that it's going to be Red Bull and McLaren in that order as the two best teams. But after that, it's a bit more of a mix-up, so we'll see how that goes. But that's what I predict for qualifying the race. Let me know your predictions in the chat. Just want to say and clarify, these predictions do not take into account the sprint race, and I'm not going to be doing a sprint race prediction because the sprint race and what happens on sprint day is just a bit too unpredictable, which is why I've only predicted qualifying and the race. But yeah, in my view, Max Verstappen and Red Bull will get another comfortable win on the board. Let me know in the chat whether you agree or disagree. But yeah, let's now get into some of the teams, and then I'll come to you guys in the chat for some comments and for some thoughts from you guys as to what will go down this weekend. So let me just go on to our first team, which is the Red Bull team. And yeah, coming into this Grand Prix, of course, we know they're going to win, let's be honest. No disrespect to McLaren. They're very strong right now, but Red Bull are still operationally and performance-wise on another planet. But it's been quite an eventful break since the last race for Red Bull. There's been a couple big-ish stories that have come out. One is lots of rumours about Sergio Perez and his future at Red Bull and even in Formula One. There's some people talking about the possibility and the rumour that he might retire or announce his retirement at the Mexico City Grand Prix next weekend. Whether that's true, we'll have to see when we get to the next Grand Prix. But from what we've heard, and Christian Horner basically confirmed this to be true in some of the interviews he's done, I think today, Red Bull have basically set Perez an ultimatum that he must finish second in the championship by the end of the season, or else he will be removed, and Daniel Ricciardo will most likely be his replacement. I think Perez will hold on to second because I think all Perez really needs in these final 5 races is 2 strong race weekends, and that should be enough. No disrespect to Lewis Hamilton, but the Mercedes is a lot slower than the Red Bull, and Hamilton needs to be basically perfect in these final 5 races compared to Perez to get the job done. And I just don't think, given the gap is already 30 points, I just don't think that is going to happen. So I think Perez will finish second in the championship, and I do think Perez will have a much better weekend this weekend than what we saw in Qatar and what we've seen in the last 2 or 3 races, really. Because with that ultimatum being set, I think he, that'll be enough of a kick up the arse, really, for him to deliver what is considered enough for Red Bull. And if he was to end up how I predicted this weekend, qualifying and finishing in 3rd, I think Red Bull would be satisfied with that. They wouldn't be over the moon, but they would be satisfied with that. I think, obviously, the best thing he could do is secure a Red Bull 1-2 behind Verstappen. But with how quick McLaren are looking and how good Norris and Piastri are performing right now, that's not necessarily for Perez a guarantee that if Red Bull are half a second quicker or around half a second quicker than McLaren, that Perez will be able to slot himself in between Verstappen and the 2 McLarens and, of course, the rest of the field. So, yeah, I think Perez will have definitely a better weekend. But really, he needs to start. If he's going to have a good weekend, he's got to be on it straight away in practice 1. Cannot be affording to be making mistakes or end practice one a second behind his teammate and down in 10th place or something like we've seen in the last few races in practice sessions. He cannot afford to do that, because that, given as well that this weekend is a sprint weekend, he's setting himself up for a terrible weekend and putting himself on the back foot if he does that. So he has to be right on it and be the Sergio Perez we all know and love straight away. And if he can be, within half a second of Max, then that would be, I think, what Red Bull would consider good enough performance. Again, not a great performance, but good enough for the Mexican, given how he's been performing in the last 2 or 3 races. It's actually funny with Perez, because I remember a couple years ago at this track, I don't know if you guys remember, in 2021, he was actually ill that weekend, but he was, through practice and even in qualifying, he was super quick, and I think he was, if I remember correctly, he was very close to getting pole position that weekend and ended up finishing on the podium. So if he can tap back into some of that form, it should be enough for him to have a good weekend, and then hopefully he can keep that positive momentum going into, of course, his home Grand Prix and have a good home race as well. But overall for Red Bull as a team, it's also been a bit of an interesting last couple of weeks, because there has been some rumours about a possible bit of politicking, let's say, going on within the Red Bull team. And let me just try and find this article quickly. So, according to F1 Insider, and they say, as per F1 Insider sources, Max Verstappen has made it clear in conversations with Mintzlaff, which I think is the new Red Bull boss, and the Thai boss, that if Helmut Marko was to leave the Red Bull team, then he would leave too. Now, you may be thinking, why has this come up? What's this about? It is in regards to what F1 Insider is alleging to be a power struggle within Red Bull between Christian Horner and Helmut Marko. And the rumour is that Christian Horner is briefing the British media in a particular way to try and force Helmut Marko out of the team. Now, whether that is actually true, obviously we don't know, and I'll be honest, I don't think it's true at all. I said this to what was it? I think I said this to Nib the other day, that I would be amazed if it was even half true, this story. But that's what's being reported, that there is a power struggle going on within Red Bull. Let me just try and find, here we go. This is a bit more information on this. So as per F1 Insider sources, Christian Horner has been apparently briefing stories to English media that Helmut Marko no longer has the support of the Thais and the new Red Bull management, and they want to get rid of him. Reportedly, Christian Horner has denied it internally, but at Red Bull they doubt it, despite him pleading innocent. So, yeah, right at the top there is some political maneuvering going on. That's what's being alleged. Now, whether this is true, again, I don't believe it's true, but I am not the person who has, communicated with the sources that F1 Inside has. So I don't know as much as what they know, but if this story was to be true, then wow, that would be something, because Horner and Marko have been the two really, running Red Bull, the Red Bull F1 team since 2005, and they're the main two figureheads of the team. Very similar to when Niki Lauda was still with us, when it was Toto Wolff and Niki Lauda, and I never imagined there'd be a power struggle between those two. I don't know if Possibly this is because Horner wants more power within the Red Bull company. I don't know whether that's a factor. I don't know whether it's because of the the Helmut Marko racism storm that we had a month or so ago with the things he said about Sergio Perez. I don't know if it's to do with that. Let's hope more information comes out about this, but I would be surprised at this current moment in time with the information that's been put out there. I would be surprised if that was that came out as true, that there was an internal war going on between the two main figureheads, really, of the Red Bull F1 project, I guess you could say. Let me know in the chat what you think, whether you think it's true. Again, my view is no, but let me know your opinion on that. But yeah, that would be quite a messy end to what's been such a great season for Red Bull, if that is going on within the team and the company. So we'll see what goes on with that. But yeah, Red Bull this weekend should be absolutely fine and should easily get pole, win the race, and do their usual. Now let's go on to the Mercedes-Benz team, who had a troubling last Grand Prix in Qatar. The two drivers making contact, and Lewis Hamilton eventually, after the race, or I think it was during the race, really, that he took responsibility for it, apologised. It was really just a racing incident, but as I got into after the race, I thought Hamilton was more so to blame for that, but it wasn't anything major. It wasn't a poor driving error, I don't think, from Hamilton. It was just minuscule stuff at the end of the day. But yeah, they come out of that going into this weekend, not looking too great. Not many people have Mercedes this weekend looking, very quick. And yeah, from what I've seen, Albert Fabrega, who, is a great F1 journalist, he tweeted out that based on simulations from the teams, it is believed that Mercedes will be, at best, the fourth quickest team this weekend. And I had them, where did I have them? I think I had them fifth. I just don't think this track suits their car very well. I mean, if you go back to the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, even though they were quicker than Aston Martin, they weren't that quick there. They were 6th and 7th on the grid. They ended up getting on the podium, but they were never really deserving on pure performance of getting that. They needed luck on their side to secure that. So it's going to be a similar weekend where they're going to really need a lot of luck if they're going to be fighting Red Bull and McLaren. And their main fight is going to be Ferrari and Aston Martin. In their fight for second in the championship, I think they'll be fine. I think they'll probably come out of the weekend with more points than Ferrari, but not, I don't think it'll be a massive outscoring of points compared to the Ferrari team. But this weekend is a very interesting weekend for Mercedes because they are bringing an upgrade to this Grand Prix. And this upgrade, it's a floor upgrade. James Allison has said that it is a very important one. Let me just try and find a quote from James Allison, if I can, about this floor upgrade. Because I saw a quote earlier about him talking about how important it was. And yeah, James Allison has talked about the new floor. And yeah, Mercedes will introduce a critical upgrade package for this Grand Prix. And these updates, according to James Allison, will help Mercedes move to their new concept for 2024. And he also said they should be worth about 1/10 of a second. So it's not a massive upgrade. It's just a slight tweak to, as he said, move them over to, what their concept is going to be for 2024. Of course, we've not got many races to go. So you'd imagine they're not going to bring any massive upgrades to, fiddle around with the current concept too much in a way that negatively affects them. But given the long-term significance Obviously, the 2024 car has to be good for Mercedes, given the personnel they've got the team, the drivers they got the team. They cannot afford next year to be in the same position as they were at the start of 2023, where they are scratching their heads and are way, way, way behind Red Bull. So it is a very important weekend to see if that new floor is indicating a very bright future in 2024 after what's been 2 really dark years for the team, considering just how great they were, between 2014 and 2021. For them to, from the start of 2022 to now, only have 1 race win. If you had told anyone at the start of 2022, or even at the very end of 2021, that in the next 2 F1 seasons, Mercedes would have 1 race win, even the people that thought that maybe this new era would spell the end for Mercedes' dominance, I don't think even those people would think that that would be possible. But that's what's happened. So we'll see just how much time it does help on track, and hopefully gives them a bit more on track this weekend. This is a very good circuit to see if that upgrade has worked or not, because of at this track you have all types of corners. You've got hairpin, you've got slow 90-degree corners, you've got what do you call it, you've got high speed, plenty of high speed corners, and of course you've got 2 longish straights, which does test out your aerodynamic efficiency. So this is a very good track for testing whether an upgrade has worked or not. So we will get a good idea with that upgrade how well it is doing for the team, and hopefully we'll get a good idea of that by at least the end of qualifying tomorrow evening. But yeah, this weekend I'm not expecting Mercedes to be that quick. As I predicted, I think they'll be only 8th and 9th in qualifying. I just don't see them that quick, unfortunately. And in the race, I think it would be a bit better for them, but 6th and 8th still isn't great. But they will come away with more points from the weekend, I believe, than the Ferrari team. But now let's go on to the Scuderia Ferrari team. Not really that much to say about them. Ferrari have confirmed they will be bringing no more upgrades this season because they are now fully concentrated on their 2024 car and the new design concept, I believe they've said they'll be doing for next year as well, which is good to hear. But yeah, this weekend they're going to be really best of the rest. I think that's the best you can see from them. Best of the rest after Red Bull and McLaren, of course. Their main fight, obviously, Mercedes and Aston Martin. I think qualifying, they'll be decent. 3rd row lockout for the race is not bad, considering this year's car and this type of track layout, but it's obviously for them not great. I mean, we have to remember, this time last month almost, they won in Singapore, and they've dropped off quite a bit since. But yeah, 5th and 6th I don't think will be too bad. Obviously in the race they'll drop off as usual because of their excessive tyre wear, and my prediction is 7th and 9th, which is not very good at all. But as Ferrari have confirmed, really, they're just waiting to get this season over and done with, get a top 3 result in the Constructors' Championship, which I think would be a decent result for them given the struggles they've had this year, and then fully focus on next year's car. So, yeah, don't be expecting anything too major if you are a Ferrari fan. And the next team we'll go on to is Aston Martin, who have a big weekend ahead of them. And I'd say a bigger weekend than Mercedes, because Aston Martin also have an upgrade coming. And this upgrade, similar to Mercedes, is going to dictate their development path for next season. So it's basically a first step towards next year's car is this upgrade, and hopefully it gives them an extra 10th or 2. They desperately need it right now. In Qatar, they had a better performance as a team in terms of the pace of the car, but Alonso didn't have a great sprint race and didn't get the best result he could have in the race either, with him going off the track a couple times, and he only finished in 6th place when I think he could have definitely finished in 5th had he not made those couple errors. The car wasn't handling great, but still, it was driver error. So yeah, they need all the pace they can find at the minute. And I do think this track will be a good track for them compared to most of the ones we've been to recently. I think Alonso will be decently competitive. And yeah, that's why I've gone with him out qualifying both Mercedes cars and finishing 5th in the race, which would be realistically the absolute best result he could get on Sunday. For Lance Stroll, who gives a fuck where he finishes? We know it's going to be a position where it's nowhere near where the car should be. We know it's going to be an absolutely terrible all-time stinker of a performance. So yeah, all the focus really is on Fernando Alonso. His dad, though, did come out, Lawrence Stroll, he did come out and talk to the media about his son and came up with so many excuses as to why his son has been so shit. Yes, let me try and find it if I can. So I'll just read this quote out. And this was in an interview with Sky Sports F1. He said, quote, Lance started the year on the back foot with 2 broken wrists for the first half dozen races, which was very challenging, but really did a heroic job, which is true, he did. And he's had an unfortunate amount of bad luck. He's had 9 retirements due to engine failures or a rear wing fail at Suzuka. Half of the races, it hasn't been anything to do with his own abilities. He has just a lot of bad luck, sadly. Well, we know that is complete bullshit. Lance Stroll, let me just look to see how many retirements he's had this year. I don't think Stroll's actually had as many as people think. I remember he had an engine failure in Saudi Arabia. Yeah. He had a failure in Saudi Arabia. Monaco, he retired. I don't know why. Let me just check. He retired in Monaco for accident damage, which I think was with Kevin Magnussen, if I remember correctly. And the only other race he retired from was Japan, which was, yeah, rear wing failure. So he's only had 3 retirements this season. Of course, he did withdraw from the Singapore Grand Prix, but that's because he made a mistake, crashed so hard that the car... was it the car? Was it him? I think it was he was unable to do the race, which, fair enough. But he's had 3 retirements this year. Only one of them was an actual engine issue. So to come out and literally lie and say he's had 9 retirements due to engine failures when he's not even had probably 9 retirements in the last 3 years is a complete fucking joke. And it shows, unfortunately, at the minute, Lawrence Stroll is not as serious as people hoped and people maybe still think about winning in F1, because you cannot be making such absurd excuses for a driver. And I know he's your son, but at the end of the day, this is sport. You have to... If you're actually going to try and win, you have to have the best people in position that you can find. You cannot be making excuses for certain people's poor performances, and you cannot allow certain people to be at your team if they're not performing to the standard that you need if you're going to be on that next level. So, yeah, at the moment, clear evidence that Lawrence Stroll is just not serious as a team owner, because if he was, he wouldn't be literally lying to the media to cover his own son and how poor he's been. Just, yeah. When I saw that, I was actually amazed at the excuses, Because I guessed that once Lawrence was asked about his son's performances, I was guessing that he probably would make excuses, but I didn't think they would be so blatant in terms of the lying like that was. And I have to say, quickly, to defend Lance Stroll, yeah, he did have 2 broken wrists at the start of the year, but from what we heard, he was at 100% after about 3 races. So, I know he said, I think, was it a handful of races he said? It was only 3. It's not like it was 6 or 7 races where he was still not at 100%. So, I'm afraid that's not really an excuse. Plus, in those 3 races where Lance was not 100%, that was when he was at his best during the entire season. So that just makes him look worse, quite frankly. But yeah. Anyway, let's go forward onto the final front-running team before we come to you guys in the chat. Let me know what you think of Lawrence's just awful excuses there for his own son. Yeah, McLaren, and they should comfortably be the second best team this weekend. Lando Norris, I think, will be ahead of Piastri because Lando has been decently quick here in the past, plus has lots of races here as experience compared to Piastri. This is going to be this weekend. Lando's 4th US Grand Prix, and of course Piastri's never raced here. I know that, in Japan, Piastri did out-qualify Norris despite him never racing there, but Lando didn't have as much experience around Suzuka as he has here. So, yeah, that's what I think will play in Lando's favour just about. And I think he'll be the number 1 for McLaren. Piastri, of course, impressing us all the time, will still get a good result for the team. Maybe in the sprint race, we'll end up with a 2nd or a 3rd, which would be a good haul of points for him to get maybe a bit closer to drivers ahead in the championship. But yeah, I think 2nd and 4th in qualifying, 2nd and 4th in the race, that would be a good weekend. If they can get 2nd and 3rd and capitalise on possible poor performance by Sergio Perez, that would be great. But yeah, 2nd and 4th in the race, I mean, that's 30 points. Aston Martin, if they get the amount of points that I predicted, that's only 10. So that would, of course, put them ahead in the championship, and that's got to be their sole aim this weekend, is just get ahead of Aston Martin by the end of the race weekend. And then maybe in the final 4 races, they can really push after Ferrari and secure 3rd in the championship, which would be quite an incredible achievement given how bad this team was in Bahrain in the first week of March. But yeah, that's how I think the teams will do. The top teams will do, at least, this weekend. Before, though, we go any further, and I forgot to include the graphic for this stream. So, yeah, shows that I did make one slight mistake for this stream on the new PC. I wanted to quickly plug my next 2 pieces of content. So, tomorrow night, guys, I will be live at 8:30 p.m. UK time for the qualifying watch-along for the US Grand Prix. Of course, it's a sprint weekend. That's why we're doing the qualifying watch-along on the Friday, tomorrow night. We're going live, I think, it's almost around about this time I'll be going live. And then, obviously, we'll be live for the build-up, then for the session, reaction, all of that stuff. Saturday night, I'll be live from 9:30 p.m. UK time for the sprint race watch-along. We'll have an hour and a half's build-up. Then we'll be doing the sprint race watch-along and then a reaction afterwards. And then on Sunday, we'll be live for the race watch-along, the main event, where I'll be live from 6 p.m. UK time. 2 hours, of course, before the race starts. 8 p.m. start time. And then we'll be live for about 4 hours or so to cover the race preview and race watch-along. And I believe that Niblo, my co-commentator, will be joining me, if I remember correctly what he said. Yeah, he should. I don't think it's 100% confirmed, but from what he said, it's, yeah, probably going to happen, which is good, because I don't think me and him have done a US Grand Prix watch-along together, I think, ever. because normally it's been on at a bad time for him. I don't know if last year he was on or not. I can't remember. But 2021 we didn't do one. 2019 he wasn't able to make it because again of the timing, and then 2018 of course he wasn't on, doing the watch-alongs with me just yet. So yeah, that'll be it'd be a good race to do with him, and hopefully very exciting for us. But yeah, make sure to come along to all the content this weekend. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content coming your way, as I've just laid out there. Tomorrow night, Saturday night, and Sunday night. And for everybody watching right now, don't forget to smash that like button. We are currently on 18 likes. And of course, hitting the like button does show me that you guys do actually enjoy the content. Plus, let's try and get up to, say, 30 likes if we can by the end of the stream. That'd be good if we could do that. And what I was going to say is, plus, it does help in the algorithm for my channel, of course, if you do hit the like button. So yeah, make sure to go ahead and do that. And again, given this is the first stream on my new PC, if it is better quality viewing than it was previously, then I hope you are enjoying that so far. And actually, talking about the new PC, it is going to be, hopefully, an exciting next few months and future, really, for the channel. Because the reason I've got this new PC is to really step up the quality of the channel. Because, as I said earlier, I wasn't streaming in a high enough frames per second for the stream quality to be, properly good. But also, really, to create great things in terms of for videos or for streaming, I needed better tech, more memory on a PC than what I previously had, and that's why I have invested in this new PC, which is relatively modern, and hopefully it will allow me to create better quality content for stream and for videos going forward. And I think especially for stream, when we get to the start of next season, which will really be starting to get into next season, probably in mid-February, because preseason testing is the last weekend of February. I'm hoping that I can make some improvements to certain areas of the stream that will allow, again, the quality to be much better going forward in terms of just the presentation of the show. So yeah, fingers crossed, a bright future for the channel. And I am going to start doing more recorded videos again, because again, now I've got more memory, I've got more power to put out higher quality content. I would like to get back into that again and try and really push on that as well. So yeah, hopefully be a good next few months and just future in general for the channel. And hello to everyone, hope you're all good. Mickey says this is a great track. I think it's because the track is so wide, helps with better racing. Yeah, it is quite wide, and there's not a lot of gravel traps at this track either. So yeah, you can go side by side with another car in lots of corners at this track. And that's the great thing about it, is there's not just one area for overtaking. It's, anywhere you want, really. And yeah, to confirm, Ricciardo is back this weekend. Darthel Raymond says, Perez will not be third. I think he is completely broken. Josiah says Perez is finished. He's not going to finish on a podium again. Hopefully, that's not the case. Willafon Gaming says McLaren do well everywhere at the moment, and also points out that the last time they had a quick car at Qatar was the inaugural race here in 2012, which of course they won. That was the last time they won in America with Lewis Hamilton. That was Lewis Hamilton's final win, of course, for McLaren. Darthel Raven says Checo knows he's going to get replaced. It seats deeply in his head. Think again, no Q3 and in the race P6, P7 or P8, exit. Yeah, if he continues on that vein of form like we saw in Qatar, then yeah, he's done. I have no doubt about that. But I just keep thinking, given the talent he clearly has, plus how good the car is, he can't be continuously this poor for the rest of this of the year. I just don't think surely that is possible. Willifon Gaming says Hamilton hasn't really closed the gap dramatically to Perez at any point this season, really. Yeah, he's just been chipping away, really, at Perez's lead. He's not, he's not had like a race weekend where he's took 20 points out that I can remember from the last few races. But, of course, Hamilton driving at a much better level, which helps him able to do that in a much slower car. Hello to Crystal Racing. Hopefully you're well. Hello to Brabamoz as well. Mickey says Marco not getting paid under the cost cap should be the biggest story, as he is at every race and is clear as day working for Red Bull Racing. I don't get it. Well, the reason he's not getting paid, well, he is getting paid, but his salary is not being included in the cost cap for Red Bull is because, and at the end of the day, and I think they are going to try and close this loophole, F1, but at the end of the day, if you look at the current regulations when it comes to the financial regulations, what Red Bull are doing is within the rules. They've just found a loophole, essentially, because Helmut Marko is not employed by Red Bull Racing. He's employed by the Red Bull company. And that's why his pay, his salary, is not included in the Red Bull Racing finances, basically. I don't know if that's the same for Adrian Newey, but I know for Helmut Marko, that's the reason his salary, there's controversy about that is because of that loophole they found, which is, I wouldn't say necessarily a very smart one, but they're not breaking the rules by doing that. Is it against the spirit of the regulations? Yeah, probably, but it's not against the actual regulations. But if they close up that loophole, then I've got no problem with that. And I think what they're trying to do is tighten up the regulations when it comes to consultants, which is what Helmut Marko basically is. But of course, we know in reality he has a lot more power than what his job description says. Track. I'm just going to say gravel for this person's username because it's a bit of a weird username. Says the problem with Perez isn't the car; it's that he has a very specific driving style and can't adapt to the way Max or can't adapt the way Max and the younger guys can. He is going to struggle, as will Daniel. Yeah, I think Perez, he actually said it a couple weeks ago that the reason his struggle started was because of a change in the balance of the car from the Spanish Grand Prix on, where I believe that's where Red Bull brought their first upgrade. And according to Perez, it put the car, in terms of its handling, into a position that he couldn't cope as well with. Let me find some other comments here. Crystal Racing says Red Bull are screwed with their number 2 seat. The likes of Norris, Sainz and Leclerc will steer clear if an offer arrives. I think, to be honest, Red Bull, they've they need to go out and just look for a proper number 2 driver to put alongside Max. And because I know we've heard talk about, Lando Norris, Red Bull are very keen. They very much like Lando. But Lando, if you bring him to Red Bull, he's not going to do or perform the role that really that Red Bull need from him, because Red Bull are not lacking in great drivers. They've got the best driver in the world. So it's not like they need another top driver in their car. They just need a driver to do the number 2 driver role well, which Sergio Perez was doing last year and to start this year. So that's all they need. They don't need someone who can match and beat Max Verstappen. They just need someone who can be close enough to Verstappen and bring the car home in a position that is, about what they should be doing. And again, Perez was doing that for about a year and a half, but now he isn't. Let me find some other comments here if I can. Mickey says Stroll has been unlucky this season, but he still makes mistakes and is well off the pace of Alonso. I don't agree that he's been unlucky, but even if, let's forget how unlucky or lucky he has been, he is still well off the pace of Alonso. So I don't think anyone can, I don't think anyone can really argue with that. Crystal Racing says, rumours that Lance only started racing to please his dad. An Aston insider once remarked he'd never witnessed such an excited but equally apathetic son. I've heard those rumours, but I don't really want to I don't want to touch too much on them because it's so hard to to actually know if that's true. The only way you're going to know if that's true is if Lance does like an interview, I don't know, after his F1 career's ended, and reveals, oh yeah, I only did motorsport because my dad wanted me to. I think that would be quite the revelation. And I think it would show that again how unserious Lawrence is. But yeah, I've never been a massive fan of Lance Stroll, but I would be surprised if that was true. Yanni saying, I'm happy Qatar is done and gone forever. Well, it's not gone forever. It's on the calendar for another 10 years, I think. And will next year be held in December, which is good. Where it'll be cooler. Hello to Ruxbo. It says, definitely looks a bit crisper, Chazza. Sound good too, yeah. Looking at my OBS, it looks better. And hopefully it looks good on your end as well. Because I will admit, from the past, it can be a bit embarrassing when your channel has HD in the name of it, and your content is not always in high definition, which I don't think mine was previously, but now it is. Let me try and find a few more comments. Crystal Racing says Red Bull will run Checo's contract down in 2024 and decide what to do. They probably will hope for improvement because there's no alternatives. Will F1 Gaming says Ricciardo's washed up. I think, let's give him the last few races of this season to show what he can do. I think people, again, have been a bit too harsh on him. Don't think he's had enough races really to prove what his current level is. Any word on what the FIA are going to do about track limits here? I haven't heard anything, but yeah. I mean, the only corners you need to watch out for track limit violations, if we go back to the track map, is possibly exit of turn 1, exit of turn 9. We know infamously is an area that has seen drivers go well off the track. And then the exit of turn 19 and possibly, exit of turn 20 as well. Those are the corners to watch out for. Turn 1, turn 9, and then the final two corners, 19 and 20. We'll see how those, how they police them. They should police them probably as hard as they did in Qatar. Mickey says, unless Perez and Danny suck for the rest of the season, then I don't see any chance for Norris to move to Red Bull. Sparky Pete says, Ricciardo did horribly versus Lando. He's not a top-notch driver at the minute, so Red Bull may partner him with Max. Well, to be honest, with Ricciardo, if he's not as great as he was at his peak, which was about 3 or 4 years ago, I don't think that's necessarily a problem for Red Bull. All they need from Ricciardo is basically what Perez was giving them last year, which is, regularly on the podium, a couple wins, and just, a lot closer in general to Max Verstappen, 2 or 3 tenths on average away at best. And, more consistent, not making as many mistakes as Perez. That's all they need, really. But, if they get Ricciardo into the car for next year, and it's the Daniel Ricciardo that we saw at Renault, then it'll probably be better than what we've seen at any point than what we saw with Sergio Perez. But let's see how Ricciardo does in these final 5 races. I wouldn't be surprised, especially with how quick AlphaTauri have become in the last 2 or 3 races with that new, that big, I think, floor and side pod upgrade they had in Singapore. Obviously their pace has improved a lot since then. If they can keep that up, I wouldn't be surprised if Ricciardo did score points before the end of the season and maybe even beat Tsunoda 2 or 3 times in these final 5 races, because we saw in the 2 race weekends he did before what happened at Zandvoort, he did pretty well. It wasn't, it wasn't the Ricciardo of, again, 3 or 4 years ago, but he did pretty well. Especially his first weekend back in Hungary. I thought he had a really great weekend considering the circumstances of what happened in that race weekend. So, yeah, let's give him a chance. Let's see what he can do. But, yeah, now we are going to go on to the rest of the teams and just fly through them. Alpine had a decent race weekend in Qatar. Esteban Ocon grabbing 6 points, and he was one of the stars of the show, especially with him throwing up during the race and feeling so bad physically, yet still coming home 7th and finishing only a few seconds behind Fernando Alonso, who was obviously in a faster car at that weekend. So yeah, great performance by Ocon through the real difficulty with the conditions in Qatar, and comes to this Grand Prix in better form than what we saw, say, before the or around the part of the season where we were breaking up for the summer break. It does feel to me like he's getting back into the form we saw, when he was on the podium, for example, in Monaco. Around that part of the season, Ocon was performing very well. It does feel like he's getting back to that now, which is good to see. And given he's had a couple good race weekends here before, I think he will be the last man in the top 10 in qualifying and the race as well, and grabbing a point for Alpine. It will be very close, though, between Alpine and AlphaTauri. I expect those two to be the 2 best midfield teams. And really, it's going to come down to the drivers as to who wins that battle and just about sneaks a point in the race ahead of probably Lance Stroll and the Aston Martin, who will still be miles off the pace as usual. So, yeah, Ocon I think will be good. Gasly, he's been hit and miss a bit at this track before. He's had a couple good races here, but he's had a couple races where he's not really done anything. So, yeah, I think Gasly will probably just be 12th, 13th, something like that, and then maybe around there still in the race. But yeah, I expect Ocon to be the main man for Alpine this weekend and grab a point for the French team. Let's go on to Williams, who did get a couple points in Qatar in the sprint race, but it was a difficult race weekend for the two drivers who physically were in quite bad shape after the race. Ocon had acute heat exposure, I think it was, Albon had after the race finished. Logan Sargent had the flu going into the race weekend and had to retire during it because of physical issues. So yeah, it was a very tough race for the drivers, and they did well really to get as far as they did in those brutal conditions, and as well in a car that was not really that quick in Qatar, and they did really well just to get any sort of points out of the weekend. For this weekend, I could see Albon maybe, getting a 12th or a 13th in qualifying if he really has a strong weekend, but I don't have Williams this weekend as a team that can be in the top 10. I think that's a bit too much for them. And Williams, of course, with 5 races to go, are desperately hanging on now for 7th in the championship because the 3 teams behind them are looking a bit stronger at the minute compared to Williams. Haas, of course, they've got this massive new upgrade they're bringing this weekend, and they're hoping it can, give them an extra, you'd imagine, at least half a second. AlphaTauri look a lot quicker right now. Alfa Romeo have had a big result, and they look decently quick at the moment. So Williams really are just hoping that the teams behind them don't, have a big race, or, Haas, for example, don't jump forward massively with their performance, because that would be a disaster in what would be a great end to the season if they were to finish 7th in the championship. But yeah, I don't expect them to be that quick. I think they'll be really fighting with Haas and Alfa Romeo, but they won't be top 10 runners at all. Alfa Romeo, not really got big hopes for them. They had a great race, of course, in Qatar, but I don't think this race weekend is going to be as good for them. Valtteri Bottas, of course, has had a couple very good races here, so he is possibly a man to watch out for in terms of who could cause a surprise. But yeah, I don't have them down either as a team that can really be in the top 10. And then Haas F1, let's touch on them. Yeah, they have got a big new upgrade, which I will touch on more tomorrow in my qualifying preview, my build-up to qualifying, once we get the confirmed list from the FIA as to all the new parts they've brought, and also get a load more pictures to compare what their new floor looks like compared to the old one. You can see here the floor they've got, very similar to the Ferrari bowl-shaped side pod that Ferrari have had last year, and also at the start of this year, that Ferrari have moved away from and probably will move away completely from for next year. These new side pods, which I'll show tomorrow for Haas, are basically like the Red Bull. So they've gone for a completely different concept, and if it can give them much more performance, might be enough to get them at least back up to 8th in the championship, maybe even into 7th. Not including what that upgrade could do for them, my prediction for them is to be about the 8th best team. Better probably than Williams and Alfa Romeo, but I'd be very surprised if they were top 10 runners. Of course, it is their home Grand Prix. They've got a special American livery, and with the Andretti bid to get onto the grid for 2026, Haas are very keen this weekend to remind everyone who is the only American team, and to have a good Grand Prix themselves in front of the home crowd. So yeah, this is a massive weekend for Haas, because if that upgrade does not work, like, at all, then they're in big trouble, I think, going into next year, because it has to work for them. Because really, start of this year, they were pretty competitive, but as usual, they've fallen away. And now everyone is moving in the direction with their car of, copying the Red Bull design when it comes to the side pod and the floor, they've got to see the gains from that immediately, really, if they're going to be, very competitive with teams like AlphaTauri, Alpine, Williams, at least going forward for the rest of the season, but also looking into next year as well. And finally is AlphaTauri. And yeah, I think they'll be right there with Alpine, but I think Alpine will just about beat them to the top 10. But Yuki Tsunoda had a decent performance in Qatar. It was nothing special, but it was, I think he did really the best he could. AlphaTauri just weren't that quick. Nowhere near as quick as we expected in Qatar. And of course, yeah, Daniel Ricciardo is back in the car. Let's see what he can do. Of course, he has been on the podium here before in 2014 and 2016. And this is normally one of the races in a season which he really gets himself up for. And of course, loves racing in America. So, and the American crowd absolutely loves him. He's one of the most popular drivers in America. So, yeah, hopefully Ricciardo is right back on it and having a strong weekend. But if Alpine are not quite up to it, not quite as strong as I expected, then watch out for this AlphaTauri team, who have now a much better car than they had a few races ago. But, guys, that is it for this weekend preview for the 2023 United States Grand Prix. Another quick reminder of my content plan. So for tomorrow night, I'll be live at 8:30 p.m. UK time for the qualifying watch-along. Make sure to join me for that. Then on Saturday night, I'll be live from 9:30 p.m. UK time for the sprint race watch-along. And then on Sunday, I'll be live at 6 p.m. UK time, 2 hours before the race starts for the race watch-along. Of course, there won't be a stream on Monday because we have a triple header. So that, yeah, there won't be another Monday review stream until the day after the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, which will be in 2.5 weeks from now. So yeah, just letting you guys know about that. Make sure to come on to all that content. And again, if you are new to the channel, then don't forget to subscribe for all that content. And before you go, guys, make sure to smash that like button. We are on 30 likes, but let's try and get up to a few more, say 35 likes if we can before the end. Before I go, though, let me finish up this poll in the chat. And 69 votes, nice number. I've asked who is most likely to challenge Red Bull at this weekend's US Grand Prix, and you guys have gone with McLaren, which of course I agree with. Mercedes, you've gone for a second, Ferrari third, and Aston Martin in fourth. Thank you guys for voting in that poll, and yeah, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button if you haven't already. And before I go, make sure to follow me on Twitter. My Twitter is @ChazHD5 or ChazHD on Twitter. Make sure to follow me there if you want to keep up to date with what I'm doing. And as well, link below in the description to my Discord server if you want to join our Discord. That's a great place, the Discord, for notifications of my videos and streams and just channel updates in general. But guys, until my qualifying watch along at 8:30 p.m. UK time tomorrow evening, it has been me, Kazza HD. Goodbye.